Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Village Board meeting, Tuesday, January 8th. If we'll all stand, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, when you have a chance, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Present.
Trustee DeVivo? Trustee Kajanis?
Present.
Trustee Nemec?
Present.
Trustee Sabo?
Present.
Trustee Yukich?
Present.
Mayor Daley?
Present. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda? All right. We'd be on E. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of November 27, 2012 meeting?
So moved.
First by Trustee Yukich,
Okay, second.
second by Trustee Sabo. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 11, 2012 meeting?
So moved.
First by Trustee Yukich,
Second.
second by Trustee Sabo. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, where are we at here now? Okay, the next portion of this meeting is reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. I'll start out. We had a bad situation happen here in town with Glen Rudd. I'd like for everybody to bow their heads as we observe a moment of silence to remember the life of a 16-year-old Homer Glen resident, Glen Rudd. As we mourn the tragic loss of her life, our thoughts and our prayers go out to her family and friends. That's a tough one. Under the Northern Will County Water Agency, the next meeting of the Northern Will County Water Agency will be on March 11th at 11 a.m. in Lamont. As in the past, the copy of that agenda will be posted on the village's website before the meeting. Under Administration and Finance Committee, the Administration and Finance Committee meeting scheduled for January 17th has been canceled. The meeting has been rescheduled for Thursday, January 24th at 5:30 p.m. Under Achievements, congratulations to Lockport Township Marching Band for placing 4th overall in the state finals, 2nd place in Class 6, and Best General Effect at the State of Illinois Marching Band Champions. And one other achievement, I'd just like to say, Northwestern finally won a bowl game. How about that? And one of our own from town here, Patrick Ward, was on that team as a senior. Very happy for him. He's been on the team for all 4 years. He had some academic achievements, and fantastic that he was part of the team that ended the saga of Northwestern not winning, I think, since 1940 something. I'm not really sure. Long time ago. So with that being said, we'll go to trustee reports, and we'll start down with Trustee Costa.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, our Fest Committee, Homer Fest for spring is going well. Plans were right on schedule with all of our plans. We did meet right before the holidays to go over, trying to get contracts for all of our entertainment and everything that goes along with that. So plans are going well. I know just trying to get different information around the holidays was hard. I had to keep bugging insurance companies and things. So I think this month, I would think probably by the beginning of next month we'll have a nice report be able to tell you what bands are going to be there sometimes and things of that nature. Also, Homer Harvest Days, we met, I think it was before, right around Thanksgiving. We did not meet in December, but we're moving forward with all those plans. That event is scheduled for September. That's one that's a little bit more difficult to plan. We probably have 40 vendors, I believe, that we try to corral for a 2-day event. So it takes many hours of planning, and pretty much after the first of the year is when we really hit that one hard. But we'll be meeting there, that committee, probably in the next week or so, along with our other fest committees. So as we finalize plans for both of our fests, we'll be reporting it to the board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Costa. Trustee Yukich?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, how about Trustee Sabo?
Trustee Sabo is reporting for the Environment Committee. And the first topic is Earth Day Arbor Day, which will be held on Saturday, May 18th at the Kona Farm on Cedar Road. Past demonstrators, participators, and new contacts will be mailed in the month of January. And the committee is looking for volunteers and sponsors to commit to this event. Volunteers, we're also seeking volunteers for that, and the office can be called with information, the name and who to call. The Heinz Emerald Dragonfly Project. This project for the Heinz Emerald Dragonfly has been completed near Yangus Park at the end of 2012. The banks have been altered and native plants have been planted at a width of 50 feet along both sides of the bank to help prevent erosion. People are encouraged to walk near the bridge to see the progress. Appropriate educational signage will be installed in the spring. And I thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. Trustee K. Janis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. First of all, I'd like to announce on Friday, January 11th, there will be a ribbon cutting for a new business in town, Pure Salon and Spa. It's right next door to the Dominic's, just to the north of Dominic's, and that's at 11 a.m. So everyone's welcome to come out and share into the festivities. We also look forward to a few other businesses that will announce ribbon cutting, hopefully in the very near future. Another thing that's Economic Development Committee discussed, and it's up on the screen right there, so I'll defer that to the presentation by our department head on CED, Janie Patch, for that presentation as well. It's a presentation that and a recommendation we put forward from CED after much deliberation and conversation, and finally a vote we had, a unanimous vote to put forward, and Janie's been working hard on this along with the staff, and look forward to that presentation.
Thank you, Trustee K. Janis. Trustee Nemec?
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the trustee reports. Is there a treasurer's report?
No treasures.
Okay, is there a clerk's report?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there a village attorney report?
No report.
Are there any task force chairpersons in the audience that would like to give a report? Okay. Is there any public safety officials that would like to give a report? Okay. Would the village manager have a report?
Very briefly, Mayor and Board. Typically, Mike, Director Salamovich, is here tonight. He's not here tonight. He's over in Lockport at a Plan Commission meeting over there. We're just keeping, friendly, good neighbor tabs on their Heritage Crossing Corporate Center, which, of course, is to their easternmost boundary and right next to us on our westernmost boundary. And they're discussing it tonight at the Plan Commission. So Michael is there joining in on, listening and finding out more information that we can share with you about any actions that they may be taking about that. So just wanted to keep you posted on that. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, that would conclude reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. The next portion of this meeting is public comment. There's nobody for public comment. The next portion of this meeting is legislation and action items. Is there a motion to accept and receive the petition submitted to the Parks and Recreation Committee regarding the building of a skate park in the village of Homer Glen?
So moved.
First by Trustee K. Janis.
Second.
Second by Trustee Sabo. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee K. Janis?
Aye.
Trustee Nemec?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be H2, Is there a motion to authorize the village manager to remit payment in the amount of $140 to the Homer Township Chamber of Commerce for the village's 2013 membership? It is understood that the ambassador points earned in 2012 will be donated to the Chamber's Scholarship Community Fund.
So moved.
First by trustee, that was Yukich,
Second.
second by trustee Costa. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Kate Janice?
Aye.
Trustee Nemick?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be I3. Is there a motion to authorize the village manager to petition the Plan Commission to initiate a text amendment that would amend the off-street parking regulations in regards to parking lot landscaping islands?
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich,
Second.
second by trustee Costa. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Nemick?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Kate Janice?
Motion carries. This would be H4. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-0001, an ordinance of the Village of Homer Glen, Will County, Illinois, establishing an Open Meetings Act electronic attendance policy?
Aye,
So
so moved.
First by trustee Sabo,
Second.
second by trustee Nemec. Is there any discussion?
Yes, would you go into more detail on this?
Sure, be happy to. This is a policy that, at the start, as it's being proposed tonight, will allow committee members, and the committees are listed in the policy, will allow committee members to join in on committee meetings if they are by telephone, by conference call, if they're unable to attend, and the reasons are listed in the policy, and there's a little procedure that's required in terms of who they have to contact and to make it, all official. And the village attorney helped to draft it, so we make sure it was all legal.
Okay, does that answer your question, Margaret?
Yes.
Okay, are there any
One
other?
small question here.
Trustee Yukich?
Thank you, Mayor. Can it be Skyped in or FaceTime in or?
If we're able to do that, a lot of the committee meetings are much more intimate, obviously, than the village board meetings are, and so I can see where that would be appropriate for committee meetings, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, FaceTime in particular would be very useful, especially for those meetings held in the mayor's office or around this table here, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But there is, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee
But there is,
Kajanis?
yes, thank you. But there is specific, if this would ever come to fruition in our village here with equipment, there is specific requirements on the electronic attendance policy to where it just can't be at leisure, it has to be specifically
Well, I'd
allowed.
let the village attorney, there's some requirements by law, so I'll let the village attorney address it.
Go ahead, Kerry.
There are only three reasons, and that's in Part B, it's on page 3. You can only assert one of the three reasons: personal illness or disability, employment purposes, or business of the village, meaning you're on business for the village itself, or an emergency, family or other emergency. So, and then there are the remaining members of the committee at this point in time still have to permit it. If they believe that it's being done just for an inappropriate reason, they do not have to allow it to happen. But there are only three reasons allowed under the law, and those three are set forth in the ordinance.
Now, with this ordinance, could it be perpetual as far as, I guess, constantly happening from a certain member, or is there requirements under law on that?
Well, when you say, you mean,
Well,
could a person continue to attend?
Have the electronic attendance, is it, could it be perpetual from one member consistently throughout the year or years?
Well,
On all meetings, or is it just,
if the reason is valid and the remaining members of the quorum determine that it's appropriate, yes, then it could be continuous. All right? But it has to be one of those three reasons.
And it counts as part of the quorum, is that right? No.
Yes, you are a part of it, but a quorum has to be physically present
Okay.
in the meeting room to allow it, or before it can occur, and then that individual, once they are permitted to attend electronically, becomes part of the quorum. They are part of the meeting.
Okay. And what equipment and expense is needed?
Well, this is one of the reasons why the committee wanted to focus just on committees, because the committees for this organization tend to be much smaller. They meet around tables. We have telephone access. We could potentially have FaceTime access, etc. So that's one of the reasons that they chose that, because there would be little, if any, expense required to do that.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the village attorney? Trustee Nemec?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Other communities extend this and have adopted this for the board as well as for committees. Is that correct?
Yes.
But this is coming forward as a recommendation just as committee, not for our board meetings?
The reason being, and I've had some lengthy discussions with the village manager and also the village attorney, is at this point, the village boardroom really is not equipped with electronics to allow the public and allow I would say the proper communication without extensive electronics being involved to be able to hear and to be able to allow things to work the way they're supposed to work. If we had, I would agree with you that it should be expanded at the time that we end up with the village hall and the electronics and the video and everything that can communicate to the public in a proper fashion so everybody can hear what's going on. I would agree it should be extended at that time. At this point in time, this room just doesn't lend to, putting a what do you want to call it, a phone up on a table and having that person talk. And I mean, I just don't see it happening at this point. That's why we sort of concentrated on the committee level. But I agree at the point that the village, gets into purchase or building a village hall, and they have a boardroom that is equipped with the proper electronics. I would say that I'd agree with that.
And I perfectly understand that at this point, a member of the board couldn't fully participate given the technology we have. But I would put forward that we want to pass an ordinance the way we envision it should work, not driven by our technology limitations at this point. So if we have something in the ordinance that states that if the technology is present that provides for appropriate and accurate involvement, engagement, I don't think we should limit it. I think we should write the ordinance the way we want it, but then make certain that we have language in here that says the technology must be present in the location in which the meeting is being held, or something like that. Because otherwise we're going back and forth, we're amending ordinances where and we're being driven by the technology, not by the purpose and the intent of the ordinance. So.
Ordinances are always meant to be, in place to guide the village and what have you. But you amend ordinances based upon circumstances and what goes on. At this point in time, I hear you saying that this village hall room right here is not equipped without the necessary electronic equipment. That we'd have to expend some significant amount of money to make it worthwhile to be able to have the public be able to hear, be able to have the recording from multiple people in here to be able to hear the correspondence. We actually have a hard time even doing this in the mayor's office when we or when we conference call in somebody to get the proper, conference call going on and what have you. So, I mean, in a room like this, I just couldn't do it without extreme amounts of money to make this room happen, which this is a temporary place, as we all know. So I disagree in the sense that the ordinance should move forward to allow committee members where it's more in a closed type of quarter where everybody can hear versus put it in context to where we can amend this ordinance when we have a village hall that's totally equipped with everything we need.
But, Mr. Mayor, aren't the majority of our committee meetings held in this room?
No.
The majority of our committee meetings, Environment Committee meets in here, Parks and Recreation meets in here.
Yeah, they're meeting in the
Public
mayor's
Safety
office.
meet in
They're
here.
they're meeting.
But I'm saying, we do have committees that meet in this room. So should we
Not-
go through and redline the committees?
Not in the sense that we're meeting right now. When a committee meets, there's a small table of chairs around, and you could put a speakerphone in there, and you could be able to hear this. But as far as people out there and people being able to hear out in the public what we're talking about on a speakerphone, I disagree. The ENF committee meets in my office. The Park and Recreation meets in my office. There's numerous committee meetings
You
that meet in my office.
No, they don't. They meet
Yeah,
here
no, the Park
because,
and Recreation meets in the mayor's office.
well, not when sewer, they were in here when sewer and
She
water
pref-
were meeting.
Yeah, she prefers to meet in there. No, but anyway.
I think the point, again, is we need to write an ordinance that makes sense, that covers what we want to do. If the technology is not here for us to do it, then it's not possible for us to conduct a meeting in line with the ordinance. So if we have we ask for adequate equipment required. The member participating electronically and other members must be able to communicate effectively, and members of the audience must be able to hear communications at the meeting site. Before allowing electronic attendance at any meeting, adequate equipment to accomplish the objective shall be provided by the village at the meeting site. And we can add a sentence there that if it is not possible to provide that, then electronic attendance is not feasible and would not be conducted at this meeting.
Why do you have to add a sentence to say what it already
And
says?
how would
Then-
you, how would you decide what is adequately
Okay, then
electronically
my point
appropriate for
is-
the public to hear and for the people that can attend our meetings that are watching this via our community channel that can't hear besides
wrote it in
a little,
here, but
a
this is what you're
little
proposing to
telephone in
pass.
here? I'm proposing for committee. For committee, because committee is a much smaller entity. It isn't a village board meeting. A committee is a small meeting, either in a village, in one of the offices back there, in the mayor's office. If it's a committee meeting in here, usually it's combined of a number of chairs put together. You can put a speakerphone on that table. I don't understand. I'm not arguing with you that at some point in time, when the electronics, and we have a village hall that can provide for this type of technology, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But at this time, I don't want to have loopholes that say, oh, I want to, because I believe that everybody can hear. I don't think that's right.
Why don't we have a response from the other board members on this?
Well, okay, nobody's raised their hand that wanted to talk, so would you like to say something, Margaret? Go ahead.
Well, I think Mary brings up a good point. My concern with the ordinance as it reads now is that if there's just a phone there, it's not very, it's just not very expandable. I mean, we've tried to do that when we've had, when a member was missing, or we've had somebody that needed to say something and it's been on the phone. It's really not, it just doesn't come off right. I mean, it's a phone call. And I just don't think the communication is that adequate. It just, you know, that's my concern on this.
But I'm not getting what you're saying here. Are you agreeing that it should be expanded beyond committee to general board meetings. And Mary's saying that if the electronic devices are available, at this point, the expense involved in electronic devices to make board meetings available for people that are not in attendance is pretty darn significant, I would think. And the opposite, when it's a committee meeting in a smaller room or in a roundabout table where you can put a phone on there, we've done it. We've done it on many occasions with, actually, Trustee Nemec. So I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that I would like to see the ordinance allow for it at committee level, because we meet in smaller rooms and smaller venues and stuff like that, for that type of thing. But to say that we're gonna do it for everything, providing the technology is available, well, who decides what the technology is to appropriately allow the people in the audience and also the people that follow this on public TV to be able to hear it?
Well, you're asking me what is my point, right?
Exactly.
Okay. First of all, my point is that a telephone sitting on a table is not that effective, although it's better than nothing, okay, to learn about what's going on in a meeting. And sometimes there's conflicts with meetings. For example, a plan commission is rescheduled and it meets at the time that an environment committee meets. So we wouldn't be in this room then, we'd be in either your room or the conference room. So we'd have to make sure that there's a phone with a speaker on it. I'd like to investigate and see what it would be. I think this is a nice test program to see how this works. But I would like to see it expanded to see what the cost would be to do anything like that. I don't even know what it involves other than a telephone at this point, if we were to do it for the public.
Well, so, what I can tell you is that you have been in our office in meetings where trustees could not make it, and we telephone conference them in. Sure. And it's very difficult even in the office.
It is. To
be able to hear. So you're agreeing with me, okay?
You're agreeing with me.
Okay, I'm agreeing with you then. Okay.
You're all agreeable.
We're agreeable, right? Well, so what I'm saying is I have no problem with, at that point, a committee level meeting, because they're not making any decisions. Committees are making recommendations, okay? I don't have a problem with that, with telephone conferencing in, as difficult as it is even at that level. But I don't want to get into the whole what is acceptable because somebody can't make it and they want to have a vote in something, and all of a sudden the electronics are okay, but they're not okay. You know, if you want us to look into how we could appropriately set up this room and what type of cost it would take to have a telephone conference in for the ability for a trustee to participate in a meeting, I have no problem with that. We haven't gone there because it's very difficult to even do on a telephone in a committee meeting. You know, I'm watching George shake. Is that in agreement? Trustee Costa?
Go ahead.
I like the ordinance, and I understand what Trustee Nemec says. I hope I understand it right. I think she just wants to add something into this ordinance that says that when the electronics become available, that would extend to the village board. I don't think she's asking to do it now or not to do it at committee level. Am I right or wrong? I'm sorry.
That's
Trustee.
correct.
So that's all she wants, and I agree with her there too. Why write it now and then later on revisit it again? Why don't we just add a sentence or 3 sentences saying that in the future, as the technology becomes available,
It's acceptable.
that it's accepted, that this
Well, I guess my question would be, who would decide, what is the electronics that provide for adequate communication between the public and the public out in the audience, and also the public that wants to watch us on TV? Is it simply a decision of the board that says, well, I feel that a telephone here is adequate, and you bring in a specialist, like, I'm just going to throw a name out, like On Q Communications, that says, are you crazy? they can't hear you on the other end. What I'm saying is that I would like to leave it at the committee level, you know, so we have it in short, enclosed quarters that people can somewhat hear us and what have you. And, you know, as we move on into the future, let's look at it as far as just amend the motion or amend the ordinance when we have somebody that says, if I do this to this room and you're willing to pay X amount, I'll sign off that this is proper communication to the public.
I understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, why not put the sentence in there? Because here, I think we all agree we don't have the technology right now. So the board would have to
I agree with you on that.
The board would have to approve the expenditure anyway to get the equipment in here to make it right. So it would, in my mind, it would just be logic, if we can use logic here, that once the board approves the new equipment, then this would apply to the board meetings too. It's pretty simple
you know what?
to me.
Mayor, real quick, just so,
Go ahead.
it's not quite as easy as just putting a sentence in, because there's about 5 or 6 sections of the ordinance that specifically mention committees. Okay, the ordinance is written for it to relate to committees. Okay, so it doesn't talk about the village board in sections, and it could be done, but there would have to be changes throughout the whole ordinance. You couldn't just add a sentence. You would have to come back later and amend it to pull out the sections that specifically just relate to committees. So it's not as easy as just adding a sentence. I just want to make that point. You'd
Okay,
have to make a number of different changes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to,
Go ahead, Trustee Cajun.
if I may, first of all, I agree taking more of a pragmatic approach, step 1, step 2, on this with the committee levels. They are small, intimate groups. The public is invited, but they're small, intimate groups, and we have had difficulties with phone connections and receptions and clarifications and delays with other times that we've used this approach. The village board is a legislative board. The committees are a recommending board. There's I believe, a major difference there. So when we get to the legislative part of our village here, where we are as a board making decisions, we need to make sure we're clear on our voice, not only amongst ourselves, but to the community and to the public. After all, we are governed by the public. We are here for the public. So we have to make sure. So a pragmatic approach, step 1, step 2, I believe is the approach to go without expending money at this time. Does that mean that we don't go out and search out what the proper technology is? Yes, we should. But let's take step 1 now, and let's go forward to step 2 when it's available to review. Why get to the edge of the board and find out the water might be too deep for us at this time? Let's take it step 1, step 2. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Mayor, and just
Trustee Nemeth.
one other comment. One, our committee meetings are subject to Open Meetings Act. We don't invite the public. The public has the right to be at any one of our meetings. So we need to make certain that we have adequate access and information at any committee meeting. The other issue and the other reason that I think that leaving the board off of this is that there are times in which the board does meet in smaller settings. For example, executive session, in which there have been times board members have phoned in an executive session, and, you know, several here at the, including, you know, I'd say 2/3 of us here. And I do believe that if we don't amend this ordinance and have it include the board meetings, then if there is someone who is out of town under one of these 3 conditions, they cannot really join the executive session. So we need to look at this. And the other thing is, you know, we're presented with an ordinance. Here it is, vote on it. And this is why there are times in which an ordinance needs to come before this board so we can have a conversation, so it's not...
But that's what we're having right now.
But it's here for legislative legislation.
And it's been open for discussion. And, you know, if we can't come to a resolve, that's the purpose for having a first and a second and moving towards discussion. And if it needs to go back, as the village manager stated, that it isn't simply adding a statement to this thing. There's multiple comments about just committee, and if this has to go back and be revisited and looked at, I don't have a problem with that. But we can go on all night, or we can just vote on it one way or the other. But I can tell you right now, in my opinion, in this room here, with a person calling in, with the public will not be able to hear properly the responses of the person that is out of town. It's very hard to do even in executive session or in committee when we have somebody phoning in a very closed room like the mayor's office. So if this needs to be revisited, I have no problem with it. But there are multiple changes that have to be made, just not one line, as the village manager said. So with that being said, we could go on talking about this all night, or would you like to have the village attorney and the village manager look at this more in language as far as how would it properly work so that at the time that the technology is available, it fits, and it's not just strictly committee? And how about we table this thing and move on and be done with it? Now, there was a first and a second on this.
Well, let me just...
Trustee Yukich?
For 1 second. Before we table it, why don't we just, what Cameron had said before makes sense. And I do agree with Mary, because especially right now, if we can do it in the mayor's office for a committee meeting, we could do it in there for an executive session, because an executive session is important. And time, and I agree with you, Mayor, why do we want to put the money in this building right now? I agree with you 100%. But if you put the language in there that we could have it when the
Technology.
yeah, when the technology becomes available to us, then everything's all there. All we got to do is we have to approve what we're going to put in. It's done. We get it done, and everyone
No,
can
you'd
see it.
still have to amend the ordinance
To
to
fit.
make it available to the meetings of the corporate authorities. You would still have to amend the ordinance
Carrie, you need to
from
sit up.
where it presently is now. You would have to make amendments to the ordinance to allow members of the corporate authorities to attend the village board meetings electronically.
Are you talking the way this is written?
This is written to limit electronic attendance to just committee meetings and
Correct.
task force meetings. Just saying we're gonna make it available to the corporate authorities when the technology, whatever it might be, becomes available, or we decide to spend the money, would not be an acceptable change. I think you'd have to make the changes to say the corporate authorities may attend the meetings electronically. It's not a difficult change, but I wouldn't feel comfortable just saying when and if we get the technology, then we can have our village board meeting, or members attend village board meetings electronically.
Right,
That's the wrong way to go about changing this.
Okay.
The right way would be to make electronic attendance at the meetings of the corporate authorities permissible in accordance with the rules, along with electronic attendance at committee and task force meetings.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well,
I have one question, just, I don't know if it's the right question, or, you know, whether I'm off key or whatever. As an elected official, once I'm elected, if I can electronically sit in Florida or in Hawaii and never come to a meeting and be able to vote and be able to voice my opinion, I really don't have to live here.
okay, but at the same
Okay.
token, you have 3 rules that says you have to, why you can and why you can't. So, yes, you would unless you were deathly ill.
I heard from the attorney, though, that...
Not necessarily, they also can be interpreted, okay? I have a family member that has an illness in Hawaii, okay? And I have to be there for the next 3 years to take care of that person who happens to be my parents, okay?
I heard
I have a disability that I can no longer, as an elected official, handle this type of environment, this type of climate. So I need to move to something because I have asthma, to Arizona. Okay, now I'm an elected official, and I'm sitting, voting from Arizona on every single board meeting, and I don't
actually,
even have to
that'd
be
be nice,
here.
wouldn't it? It would be nice. But the point
You
is, I
get
mean, that's-
exactly what I'm saying, George.
Yes, I do, 100%.
Okay.
But I mean, that's not gonna, even what we're talking about, for as many times as it would happen, is gonna be next to nothing. But all we're trying to say is, Mary made a good point, and I didn't even think about it until she said it. As for the executive session, the only reason I say that is I was in one of those when I was down in Florida for business, and I tried getting in. If you remember, I had to scream because nobody could hear me. Then I couldn't hear what anyone else was saying. If you had the opportunity to be able to do it, it would be a lot better.
How about we do this, Dave, because we're getting long in the mouth with this whole thing.
Okay.
How about we table it and we make our suggestions to the village manager, that we'll talk with the village attorney as to how to structure something that makes sense, that the ordinance can't be taken advantage of, and at the same time, there's responsibility to be here as often as you can be here and that type of thing.
I agree.
Okay, so we had a first and a second. Who was the first,
I
Gail?
was first. I
Okay.
was first, but I just I agree with that, but I just want to say that I did hear the attorney say that anyone who was on the phone was not part of a quorum, and they're not part of a quorum, wouldn't have a vote. So, I
You
think
can't have
that's
a
what I
meeting
heard.
without a quorum. You have to have a physically.
But they aren't, it has to be physical. So the person in Florida is not present then.
Once a quorum is established, they are present.
Oh, once a quorum is established, then they are present.
Yeah, they can vote if there's a quorum present
Oh,
in the
all
room.
right,
But
well, I
the
didn't hear
quorum
that
has to be
right.
present first, then they
You know
accept you
what?
coming in.
Hold on here a second. We have an attorney here. Hey, we pay you, so start.
Well, that's what he said
start
before.
answering the
What I'm
questions.
trying to say is, you have to have a quorum
What's
of
that?
members physically present before, to conduct a meeting, before you ever get to the question of electronic attendance. And then, under the way this ordinance is written, a motion would have to be made by a member who is present to exclude or deny the request to be electronically present. There's another way to write an ordinance like this, which would require a motion to allow the person to attend electronically. But we did it this way because it was more conducive to permitting it if one of the instances occurs. What I've heard tonight is all the reasons why you don't really want to have electronic attendance of members of your village board at village board meetings. Committees are one thing, village board meetings are another thing, but if you want us to revisit the ordinance, make it available to members of the village board to attend village board meetings, we can do that. But
Well, and I do think it was more
I
than
have
that.
a question,
I think-
Mr. Mayor.
Let the trustee Sabo finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't hear you.
I did think that was more. That didn't come first, that came second. What was first was that if technology is available, appropriate technology, and can be present in the room, that it would be available in a room such as this. If Mary wants to restate that, she can, but it was not just for committees, it was actually, in the future, if it could be expanded to a room like this.
yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Trustee Sabo or Trustee Nemec or any of the other trustees, but the ordinance we prepared was one of a choice, two choices that were recommended by the Illinois Municipal League. And neither of those two choices had anything remotely similar to, if technology becomes available, then we will do something. That's not the way you draft an ordinance. You draft an ordinance to address specific circumstances. You make it understandable, if you can, and then if you want to change it, you amend it. You don't put things in to the ordinance that are really difficult of definition. So I didn't create this from my own terms. I researched it. I found two very good drafts prepared by the Municipal League, worked with them, worked with the village manager, and then came to this. But there's nothing like if-then, because those kinds of things really get you in trouble. They do. Trust me, they do.
Which is what I'm trying to say is, who interprets the if-thens, you know what I mean? Everything becomes an if-then. And I'm telling you, I'm looking at this, and the member cannot attend because of a family or other emergency. My dad has to be in Florida, and he's sick, and I have to be there with him. I'm not coming back for 4 years.
I don't think that's responsible.
Well, the way I read it, you know, it's open for interpretation. Anyway, what I would say is, I go back to saying, is I think what we should do is, we've discussed it at some length. How about we have the village attorney, anybody that wants to have input, to send it to the village manager, to relay it to the village attorney. I'm not a big fan of everybody just contacting the village attorney. It just runs up legal expenses. Please go through the village manager, make your recommendations as how you think this ordinance should read, and the village manager can discuss with the village attorney the recommendations from the village board. Trustee Neiman.
Mr. Mayor, that might be, you might get 10 different versions of an ordinance where now we can actually kind of hear the perspective. A couple things. I do think that Clause D, as the attorney said, that says adequate equipment required, really does cover the fact that the intent is that there be sufficient equipment. The clause that states that a member of the existing, the committee or the board can make a motion to exclude electronic attendance means that if the members present feel that the adequate equipment is not here, they can then deny that attendance. So I think we've got these safety measures in place. I think that there are circumstances that we deal with that excluding the corporate authorities from electronic attendance is something that we don't want to do. I agree that I think at this time, electronic attendance at one of these meetings would not serve the public or serve the board. I agree with that. But I think there are times in which there are rooms and meetings that we need to consider. So I don't know that this ordinance needs a significant amount of change, and you're right for correcting me on the if it's available. You're right. That doesn't make sense. What's here, I think, covers it. So what I'm recommending is just adding the corporate authority, because I think this body can govern what's in the best interest of the public.
I disagree. And I don't believe that we should be setting up situations where people can be piped in to hear from anywhere to be able to judge village business, not be in person to be responsible. And I disagree wholeheartedly. I think this thing has to go back. It has to be looked at. I have a question now. With this being said and what have you, if the person is able to electronically get involved in a village board meeting and what have you, do they have the ability to vote?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, then my next question would be, and I may be wrong, I may be right, how does it work at state and federal levels if you're not present?
I don't know.
Can you, if you're not in present at the Senate vote, can you call in your vote?
Their rules, their parliamentary rules are really complicated. I think in some instances they can proxy their vote,
They
so
proxy,
to speak, but
yeah,
in other instances, if they're not in attendance, their vote is not counted. But
I
it's a lot
think
more complicated. But then they make the rules. The federal or the state government makes the rules that we have to follow, and oftentimes their own rules exclude them from having to follow the same rules they establish for us as a municipality. So,
Right.
But I don't know what they do downstate.
I would say this, is that if something is important enough to the village to vote on, I understand if you have a family emergency, if you have something, and it's a particular situation, you can talk with your colleagues, and you can ask them to move the vote to another date so that you can attend. I do not believe that you should be able to be anywhere in the country and be able to vote for the Village of Homer Glen and have no substantive matter of being in person to answer questions, plain and simple. If it's important to the Village of Homer Glen, you should be here. You're an elected official. That's my personal opinion. Now, I think this thing should be tabled. It goes back. We relook at this thing. We see how other government agencies do it, meaning the federal, the state, and everybody else, because I don't believe you just get to phone in your vote. You get elected and you go, you know, crying out loud, I have a place in Florida. You want your mayor sitting down in Florida for 4 years, calling in his vote? How about I run meetings from Florida? How about that?
Jim,
Well,
first
but
of
we
all,
do have a
why do you
clause
get
that
upset
says if
over
you're
this?
not
This
here,
isn't
someone
anything
else
to
will
get upset
run it.
over.
It is something to get upset
This is
over,
just-
George.
it's a discussion.
The fact of the matter is this isn't right.
Okay.
It's not
Well-
right, and I don't believe it's right, and that's why I'm getting upset about it.
If I'm correct, Mary asked before if it is going on in other villages and cities, and you said yes, it is. So apparently, it must be right to some people. It doesn't mean it's necessarily right for us. But the whole point is here: we're making something this big, and it shouldn't be that way. This is real simple. If
So
we want
I
it, we
go
want
back-
it. If we don't want it, we don't want it. All they're asking for is to revisit this a little bit, discuss it
fine.
like we're doing it, find out some of the coulds and can'ts, and let's go from there.
And I recommended that we
Okay.
table it.
All right.
I
so-
recommended that you submit any recommendations to the village manager so that he can discuss how other communities address this issue, how the state and federal government address this issue, and we move on from there. So I'm asking to table this thing. Now, there was a first by, I believe,
Yeah, I do agree with the tabling, because I think that discussion has just kind of been repetitive, but I will say that when the person who is on the phone has to ask permission, if he can be part of this, the answer could be no, so that guy sitting in Florida doesn't get his wish, so he could, the rest of the
Arizona.
board can say no.
all right. So now, the first was made by who?
First was made by
Trustee
Trustee
Sabo.
Sabo, and
Would-
I'm asking to table this motion.
You're
Now, I'll
removing
let-
your original motion and asking, your first thing to table. The second was
Trustee Nemick.
Trustee Nemick.
I concur.
She's removing her second and concurring to table the issue for further discussion. Okay, all in is it all in favor, or is it a roll call?
Either way, I prefer a roll call, but
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo.
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis.
Aye.
Trustee Nemick.
Aye.
Motion carries. H4 has been tabled for further discussion. Bob, public comments over with. We will talk about it later, though, I know that. Okay, all right. You might.
This phone is dead. I mean,
I can hear you.
this
I
speaker
think-
is dead.
I think you need to turn it down.
No, it just now.
I can hear,
Is it?
I can hear
Okay.
you tapping.
All right, okay. very
Okay,
good. Can you
so
hear that?
now, where are we at
Yes,
here?
good.
We are on H5. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-002? An ordinance approving and adopting the official 2013 zoning map of the Village of Homer Glen.
So moved.
First by trustee Kajanis,
Second?
second by trustee Nemick. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, just real quick, this is a real simple one. You have a list of all the changes attached. Happy to answer any questions if anybody does have any.
Okay. Any questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis.
Aye.
Trustee Nemick.
Aye.
Trustee Sabo.
Aye.
Motion carries. H6, is there a motion to approve the attached mayor and village board SOP number 6, Village of Homer Glen, Emerald Ash Borer, EAB management plan? First by trustee Sabo.
Yes, I so moved. Thank you.
Second by trustee Yukich. Any discussion?
Mayor, I would just say it's been really great to work with the Environment Committee on this. We talked about it actually over 5 different meetings, both the Environment Committee and the Administration and Finance Committee. And we're excited about it. We want to get it up online if you are so inclined to approve it and promote it in the February newsletter. And also, I know that Trustee Szabo has her committee looking at the village ordinance for parkway trees, and we're working with our village forester on that. What you don't see in this SOP is an actual list of trees that are acceptable in parkways, because that's actually in a different part of the village ordinance, and we're working on revising that and updating that, refreshing that. So you'll probably see that a couple months down the line, maybe February, March, out of committee. So it's just been good to work with the committee. Just want to make that point.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, I just-
Trustee Nemec? Or Trustee Sabo?
Yeah.
Sorry
I
about that,
just
Trustee
want
Nemec.
to make
No
this
problem.
comment that a lot of work is being done out in the field and different communities, and so from time to time, this may be amended to add any new procedure or happy things that may prevent emerald ash borer, some techniques. So that's it.
Are we going to have the electronics to make sure that the emerald ash borer is, I'm only kidding, Margaret. Sorry about that one. I had to go there, all right? Come on now. We
well,
got to add a little levity to this
Well,
place, right?
electronically, we could do GIS so we know which trees have them.
Aaron's pretty good at it, so maybe we'll work on that. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Nemec?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yuki?
Motion carries. This would be H7. Is there a motion to approve the proposed changes to the Mayor and Village Board SOP number 1 and number 2 to approve the annual review with no charges to the SOPs number 3, number 4, and number 5?
No changes, not charges.
No changes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So moved.
First by Trustee Costa,
Second.
second by Trustee Yukich. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Nemec?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yuki?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. H8, is there a motion to grant an extension of the existing special use for the Glen Oak Center in Homer Glen, Illinois, for an additional 1-year period beginning on January 10, 2013, and continuing through and including January 8, 2014?
So moved.
First by Trustee Kajanis,
Second.
second by Trustee Costa. Any discussion?
Mayor, just wanted to acknowledge the doctor's in the house tonight. I don't want to murder his last name, Dr. Glen. And we've been working with him pretty regularly. I know he appreciates the board's consideration of this tonight, between, a little bit of a downturn in the economy and then the IDOT road situation, which I think they're coming to conclusions on. We've been talking pretty regularly every couple months, and so it looks pretty positive going forward, but we need a little bit more time. It needs a little bit more time to make this happen.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Nemec?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yuki?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Glenn. Okay, where are we at? H9, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-003, an ordinance accepting certain public improvements in the Amberfield Townhome subdivision? It is understood that the street lighting system is being accepted by the village at this time. The public street lighting is located along the following roads: Sweetwater Drive, Astor Lane, and Clover Lane.
So moved.
First by Trustee Yukich,
Second.
second by Trustee Costa. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, Trustee Sabo had asked me independently about whether or not there would be money needed to fix any of the lighting fixtures in the subdivision. I asked Director Salamovich about that. He said it would be minimal, less than $500, and of course, we will take that out of the LOC money. So the lights, for the most part, are fully operational.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee Janis.
Aye.
Trustee Nemick.
Aye.
Motion carries. H10, is there a motion to authorize staff to prepare and submit a CMAQ grant application for an extension to the village's Hero Bike Trail System between Pin Oak Drive and Goodings Grove School? It is understood that the cost of Phase 1, which is not to exceed $15,000 for the extension, will come out of the Park and Recreation Fund of the village's 2013-2014 budget.
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich.
Second.
Second by trustee Nemec. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It's my understanding that in an email to the village, the Homer Glen Foundation has offered to fund from the Mike Hike part of the extension. So if we have an opportunity for a local nonprofit to help pay for this, and we don't need to use taxpayer dollars, it seems to me that we should take advantage of that.
Sure, we would have to expend the money, and then the donation would come in to offset the expenditures, because through the grant program, a nonprofit can't pay for it, the village would have to pay for it, the grant recipient would have to pay for it, and then we get reimbursed.
But
So we would accept a donation to offset
And
the cost.
wouldn't they, isn't there matching funds?
We would still show the expenditure in the line, in the budget, but we would show an offsetting revenue item for a donation.
Have you been back in touch with the foundation?
Not about this. I know that Laurel had contacted and said that they might be willing to make a donation, but she didn't mention an amount or anything. So if you do this and we put the grant application in, then I will communicate and let them know and tell them the amount and things of that nature.
Okay, because it's, you know.
Now, this is just for phase 1. This isn't for the actual building of, the portion that was in the motion. The change, just real briefly, CMAQ has changed pretty dramatically. We didn't expect this announcement just less than a month ago about these available funds. They've made a pretty major change in these grant applications requiring that phase 1 be picked up and paid for by the grantee. And I think that's a good change for us, because we have the money either through our own resources or through donations to do phase 1. And what that's going to do is we think that that's going to cut down the number of competitors, because while this is a pretty simple project, a lot of communities put forward paths where the phase 1 would cost 6 figures. And so we think this is probably going to reduce the number of competitors, and we'll have a better shot at actually getting the grant money. So it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee Janis.
Aye.
Trustee Nemick.
Aye.
Trustee Sable.
Motion carries. H11, is there a motion to establish a special meeting of the Village Board for Tuesday, January 29th at 7 p.m. for the purposes of discussing the 159th Street Corridor Plan Project?
I so move.
First by trustee Sable.
Second.
Second by trustee K. Janis. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee Janis.
Aye.
Trustee Nemick.
Aye.
Trustee Sable.
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, just so that you are aware, the meeting has been scheduled on a time when I am out of town because of work and am unable to attend.
Okay, thank you.
We are going to film that meeting like it's a regular village board meeting, because we want to upload it. We're going to try to, as we promised many months ago, we're going to try to make all this 159th Street planning stuff as transparent as possible. So we will film that meeting and make it available to everybody.
Okay, the next portion of this meeting is a presentation on the Village of Homer Glen Draft Sales Tax Economic Development Incentive. I'll turn it over to the village manager to introduce the workshop session.
Well, I'm going to give you a couple sentence introduction, and that's going to be Director Patch has I drafted an original incentive policy. It was good, but it's not nearly as good as the one that you're going to see tonight and the copy of the one that you got on your agenda. Janie has taken it and improved it greatly. The Community and Economic Development Committee worked on it at 2 of their meetings and also made changes to it that I think improved it greatly. And she's going to go through and give you a presentation tonight. You're obviously not voting on anything. And it's a really great presentation. So I'll just turn it over to her and let her go.
Go ahead, Janie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board of Trustees. My presentation tonight will focus on a proposed Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP, designed to express the intent of the village regarding economic incentive agreements with business entities proposing to open or expand sales tax generating businesses in Homer Glen. And I invite everyone to follow along with the slides presented on the screen. Economic incentives are a tool of economic development used to bring forward quality projects that will generate substantial new revenues, new jobs, or other benefits for the village, and which would not be possible in Homer Glen without the incentives. Homer Glen has some history with economic incentives. A pre-existing agreement negotiated by Will County for internal roads at Goodings Grove Shopping Center was assigned to the village upon annexation. Incentive agreements were also negotiated by the village upon annexation of Homer Town Square with Dominic's and the development which brought in Menards, both of which happened in 2002. The most recent incentive agreement involves a new Meijer store which is slated to open in 2014. Sales tax sharing as a tool for economic development is widely used in Chicagoland communities. The list, which is building on the screen, shows a sampling of 16 other suburban communities which have had employed sales tax incentives within the past 3 years, from 2010 through 2012. A table which trustees are receiving tonight in hard copy summarizes Homer Glen's sales tax incentive agreements to date on the top sheet with the title which is bordered in red, and this is followed by a review of the incentive agreements sampled from 16 other communities on the attached sheets. The added yellow highlights on this hard copy table show instances which mirror our draft SOP regarding the use of a 50-50 sharing ratio and a 10-year term. This map view of the 16 communities sampled readily shows the wide geographic, here we go. It shows the wide geographic coverage of Chicagoland towns using sales tax incentives. Establishing a policy for the use of sales tax incentives makes sense in this environment. Policy guidance would also be timely as the greater economy continues to recover, bringing new opportunities for business growth and economic development to Homer Glen. The purpose of the proposed SOP is to establish guidance for the process and structure of agreements when considering a potential incentive for economic development. This guidance will benefit both the village and the private sector, and it will provide a framework, helping to ensure that the process is consistent and fair each time it is employed. The SOP will help ensure that the village has the information needed to perform proper due diligence. It will also provide clear guidance to developers and businesses. All of this creates more certainty in the process, saving time and effort for both the village and the private sector. With expectations clearly defined, this policy will help communicate the message that the Village of Homer Glen is ready to do business and is business friendly. The primary goal for the use of economic incentives is to realize quality projects which will generate substantial new sales tax revenues for the village. Typically, said projects would not occur without the village's economic incentive. The type of incentive proposed is a rebate of a portion of new sales tax to be generated by a project. The revenue stream to be employed for the rebate would be limited to the 1% local sales tax. Off the table as a source of revenue for sales tax rebates is the 1% home rule sales tax, because this revenue stream is dedicated to debt service on bonds for capital improvements. Eligible projects would include business attraction, business retention, and business expansion or modernization. The intention is to make available a minimum amount of assistance needed to provide the developer with a reasonable rate of return while realizing a significant level of return for the Village of Homer Glen in light of desirable economic growth, long-term value, and community benefits. The proposed SOP identifies the following review criteria for evaluating requests for an economic incentive: compatibility with the comprehensive plan, the positive impact of the project on the growth or stabilization of village sales tax revenues, attraction of targeted business niches or targeted firms, remedy for an underserved business sector, diversification of the business mix, probability to improve Homer Glen's economic base by enhancing the profitability and marketability of existing businesses or business corridor areas in the community, use of vacant or underutilized commercially zoned property, improvement of public infrastructure, such as extension of water and sewer lines needed to surface sites already incorporated, street improvements, traffic control, traffic circulation and streetscape, or public facilities, such as park or other recreational amenities and trails. Creation of more marketable commercial space, quality appearance beyond code and design requirements, and any other benefits to the village, such as the impact of the project on job growth, as defined by the village board. To round out the review criteria, there is recognition for any extraordinary costs which present prohibitive expense for a project moving forward. Examples could include the cost of public infrastructure beyond the scope of the project or environmental remediation. The developer's ability to construct and complete the proposed project based upon past experience, reputation, and credit history. Oops. I'm going to go back to this one. The probability for economic success of the proposed project. And in all cases, the applicant should demonstrate that the project would not otherwise take place but for the economic incentive. The review process will entail the following steps. The applicant will need to submit a complete application with all required information. The village staff will then review and analyze the request. If deemed necessary, the applicant may also be required to provide a professional services deposit for any consulting costs incurred in the review. Following staff analysis and recommendation to the Community and Economic Development Committee, the CEDC will review and provide a recommendation to the village board. The request and recommendation can then be considered by the village board, and a finding as to whether it is in the best interest of the community to provide a public economic development incentive can be made. If applicable, an economic incentive agreement will then be drafted for subsequent consideration and final village board approval. Requests for economic incentives will be considered on a case-by-case basis based on the merits of the individual proposal. The decision to approve an agreement is offered only upon a clear demonstration of substantial and significant public benefit. This proposed SOP does not limit village board action. The village board has final authority to negotiate terms, to deviate from the SOP, or to deny approval of an incentive request when deemed to be in the best interest of the village. The proposed SOP also includes provisions for how to structure an economic incentive agreement. The but-for standard is a finding of financial necessity that the applicant would not be able to pursue the proposed project without the assistance. That is, the project would not happen but for the assistance. The dollar amount rebated should not exceed a 50% split so that the village retains at least half of the new 1% local sales tax dollars generated by the project in any given year. A period of 10 years should be the maximum term for any economic incentive agreement. Commitment has to do with the developer's commitment to retain ownership of the overall project until final completion, and for any key business tied to the agreement that its occupancy is committed through or beyond the term of the incentive. A timetable for construction completion and phased occupancy as appropriate to a given project, and finally a clawback provision to ensure that the village will receive reimbursement in the case of non-performance. As I conclude my formal presentation, I'd just like to encourage businesses and developers to contact the village staff for assistance with their interest in Homer Glen and business development. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Thank you, Janie. Nice presentation. I think it's a good idea. I think we're getting ready for economic development in this community as our infrastructure grows. We've got the 159th Street project coming through. The county has plans for Bell Road. The county is already in the ground on 143rd from Wilcook to the intersection at 143rd and Bell. There's a lot of stuff going on, so I think this is very appropriate to have something in place so that business people can look at how we view business incentives. That's my only comments, and I think it's something good to have in place. They have a general idea of how we're going to handle things. And does anybody have any questions for Janie? Trustee Costa.
Just real quick, excellent presentation. I read this at home, went over a couple of the items. Under the submittal requirements, the project details and the market study of it, is that pretty, let's say without an incentive, is that pretty much standard that a business would give to the village anyway? Or if there have been things added here just to make sure that we have everybody that, you know, that's going to be involved in the project, we know who's in there?
Do you mean the level of detail that is
Yes.
requested?
Yeah.
Is that fairly standard
Yes.
in reviewing other communities and how they do it? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay, yes. This is a practice, it's a tool that is widely used.
Okay.
And I have gone in and looked at how other communities have structured some of their agreements. In preparation of a comparative review of other communities, actually looked at some of the actual agreements that they were able to come to terms with, but also in some cases we have their policy statements and how they set it up. So yes, it's very standard.
Okay.
And when it gets, I guess I would just add that, you know, when you get into an open book process with a developer, you know, you're really looking at financials, and of course that kind of information would be handled in confidence by staff and consultants involved in the process to come to a recommendation and for review for the village board.
Okay. Are there, go ahead,
Just one final
Cousin.
comment. So what we're asking for the submittal requirements, there's really nothing in here that would be really unique to Homer Glen. This is pretty much standard for other communities also.
Yes, there will be some variations among communities, but this is fairly straightforward and standard. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Janie? Trustee Nemec?
Thank you, and Janie, an excellent presentation. Unfortunately, it wasn't available in WebShare, so I wasn't able to see it until tonight. So I would like to get a copy of it if I could, please. The procedures and what you've outlined in the SOP is consistent with what we have done over the last 12 years. So I'm very comfortable with how this has been laid out. Trustee Sabo and I have been involved on this with 3 out of the incentive agreements. And I know that the considerations in the protocol were very consistent with what you laid out. I love the fact that it's going to be an SOP so that we are consistent as we go forward, and we put this more in our, standards. So then, and as the village managers brought forward with more SOPs, that is, it's time that as we get older, they become just part of our protocol. So thank you for putting this forward, and if I could get a copy of it.
Absolutely. One of the best things, just to key in on Trustee Nemec's comments, is one of the best things about SOPs is that we look at them definitively once a year, just like you did tonight. You know, we have approved all those SOPs and you re-upped them tonight. We made changes here and there. So it will never get stale because you'll be looking at it all the time. So that's one of the best things. Sometimes ordinances go and they sit and we don't update them as regularly as we do the SOPs.
Thank you. One comment I'd like to make before I go to Trustee Sabo is I'd like to thank Trustee Kay Janis, who's the chairperson of the Economic Development Committee. They've worked hard on this. And they've worked with our new economic development person, Janie, and she brings a lot of knowledge to the table. I like having a toolbox of rules, you know, so people just aren't out there trying to guess what's going on. Here's what you need to submit. Here's what we have to, look at, and here are the possibilities that are in front of you. And I really want to thank the Economic Development Committee for their work on this, and it's tough, and they've got it done. Trustee Sabo?
I think what this does, the presentation and this SOP will do, is that it makes it clear for the board members to know that there is a standard that has been applied and that there is fairness in the approach and the outcome. And all incentives that are being asked for are measured in the same way. And I understand from this that not all requests would be made. The criteria is there for which it to be based. So, for example, the clawback is an excellent thing to have in there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Sabo. Any more comments?
Yeah,
Trustee
yes,
Kay
Mr. Mayor,
Janis?
if I may. Thank you for your comments also, Mr. Mayor, but it was CED. We enjoyed working with Janie on this and staff, as well as Cameron and Aaron. They all had a part in our discussions on this, and we really appreciate the leadership Janie gave us on this and through our discussions with her at our meetings. I believe what this brings is consistency, a consistent approach to working with developers that are coming into our village. It also identifies a structure that helps us knock down possible barriers to economic development that might be existing within our village that we may not at this point in time be aware of, but we may face them as developers come forward. So, and I believe our growth of our tax-based dollars is the most measurable along with job creation. I believe this hand in hand puts us right there lockstep with a policy of intervention with the aims of economic development to build our tax base. So the committee is very excited on going forward with this and going forward to a full vote shortly. on this and getting more feedback from other members of the board. So, again, I want to thank Janie for her leadership and Cameron as well.
Thank you, Trustee Kajanis. I would recommend then, because we will be bringing this SOP forward, if any trustees feel that there should be additional information or additional criteria added to this SOP, please contact the village manager. He will talk with the chairperson of the Economic Development Committee, and he can bring it forward to his committee. So I appreciate it.
And just as a final word, because we know we're coming to a large store closure here in town, and we're working hard with the owner of that property to market it, and because Janie is going to be attending an economic development event here shortly where she'll be marketing available village properties and whatnot, we really want to bring this SOP back to the village board for consideration at your next meeting. So that we have it. It's going to be a model. I will tell you right now, I know people will borrow this document because it's written so well. But we want to have it available for her to use as a tool when she's having private discussions, especially on regarding some of our larger parcels. That's going to happen here very shortly. So if you have any, after you hear this tonight and you get a chance to re-review it, if you could get back to, actually either Janie or me, within the next week, that would be great, because we'd like to put it back on your agenda in 2 weeks, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janie. Okay, that concludes our workshop item for tonight. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Okay, then the next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing executive session minutes? First by Trustee Sabo.
Second.
Second by Trustee Costa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to go into executive session. We'll take 5 in between. Anybody wants to talk with the press, feel free.
Can I get those?